Brought to you by 1AAuto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet.
Hi, I'm Mike from 1AAuto. I hope this how-to video helps you out. And next time you need parts for your vehicle, think of 1AAuto.com. Thanks.
In this video, we're going to show you how to replace the rear strut on this 2003 Mercury Mountaineer. And we show you on the passenger side, but the driver's side is the same procedure. And the items you'll need for this is a new rear strut from 1AAuto.com, a 13 through 21mm socket and ratchet, piece of pipe for some extra leverage, a flat blade screwdriver, a pry bar, jack and jack stands, and a torque wrench. Start off by prying off your hubcap. Then remove these 19mm lug nuts, and if you don't have air-powered tools, you want to loosen them up while the vehicle's on the ground. Raise the vehicle and remove them the rest of the way. Now just pull the wheel free. Now you want to remove these three nuts at the top of your strut. So just spray them with some penetrating oil and let them sit. And then also spray the bolt at the bottom of your strut and let that sit.
Okay, on our vehicle, I believe these were originally a 13mm, and they had actually rusted down so that a 1/2-inch wrench actually worked best. And you can see I put the wrench onto one of the nuts, and then I hook another wrench in. That gives me some extra leverage, and I can get the nut going. And like I said, it was kind of a process. I got the 13mm wrench on there first, realized that there was some flaky rust, so then I went to the 1/2-inch wrench, and that went on. The other thing is, a lot of times, one of them broke off, which was fine, actually sped the process up, but another one of them I had to just kind of loosen and then tighten a few times and spray it with penetrating oil before it came off. To get to one of the bolts, you'll have to move this shield.
And to do that, you just pry out these clips. And then remove the 4 clips down the side, and to do that you just twist out the center with a Phillips screwdriver and then pull the clip out. And if yours are broken or have sand in them and they won't come out, then just pry out, put some wire cutters in there, and just clip the tops off. And once you've gotten all of them, just pry out and pull that panel free, and now you can access that back nut. Now remove this 21mm bolt using your socket and ratchet and a piece of pipe for some extra leverage. And once you get it out to this point, you should be able to just pull it free.
Start off, use some penetrating oil, and coat that. The bolt for the stabilizer link is from down here, and it's a 16mm. It's always really good if you can put your wrench on it and turn it. Okay. What this means, actually there's two really good things going on here. You can see I'm turning it and that nut is not moving. Okay. And the other thing is you're turning it and this plastic isn't moving. The biggest, sometimes the hardest part is getting this whole shaft out of the plastic. If you can't turn it, or it tends to turn the plastic as well, what you can do is use a hammer and a chisel and break away all the plastic when you get to that point. But as you can see, I was able to turn it with the 16mm. This nut on the original is a 15mm. And I'm just going to remove this nut.
And we'll just fast forward as Mike removes that nut. And once you remove the nut, it should just pull out. but if the bar still won't pull out from the bottom, just lock onto the plastic with some locking pliers and use a 16mm socket and ratchet. Try to get it out that way. And if it still only goes so far, you can use a hammer and a punch and just knock it out the rest of the way that way. And once you pull it out, the plastic part will just lift up and out.
Need to remove the bolt that holds the outer lower control arm. That nut is 21mm, and the other end of the bolt is 18mm. So I use a socket and ratchet with a pipe with some extra leverage to get it loose, and then hold the bolt end with an 18mm wrench and remove the nut the rest of the way. Now you just need to loosen the two bolts that hold the control arm to the body or the frame. There's one there. They're 21mm nuts. There's 18mm heads on the bolts, but they actually have tabs on them to hold them in place. So I use a 21mm socket and ratchet and a pipe for some extra leverage and just loosen those up a couple turns.
Once those are loosened, you can pull your lower control arm down. You lift up on your wheel knuckle, and then you can just lift your strut up and out. On the bottom is the old strut, above it is the new one from 1A Auto. You can see they're identical and they'll fit exactly the same.
Okay, make sure you have the lower part of the strut lined up so that the mount obviously goes front to back, so that the bolt will go in, and then feed the top up and in. Just kind of look it up and in until you get those 3 studs lined up, and once you get them lined up, push it up in there and start the 3 nuts on to hold it. You may need to turn the bottom of the strut just a little bit to make sure it lines up well. You shouldn't have to turn it much, just in adjusting it a little bit so the bolt will go in easily.
And once you get it lined up, just lift the lower control arm into place, and then push your bolt back through the strut. And then push your other bolt back in right here on the wheel knuckle. Just hammer that in, and then hammer this bolt in just a little bit. You want it to be at about that distance right there. Put the nut on the other side, and then just tighten that bolt into the nut. And then put the nut onto this bolt. And then we'll fast forward as Mike tightens both of those up. And then just tighten up those 3 nuts at the top of the strut.
You want to tighten these up between 20 and 25 foot-pounds, which is just good and tight with a small wrench.
Now take your sway bar and load it up with a washer, then a bushing, then your lower control arm. And when it goes through, add a bushing, then a washer, then that tube, and another washer, and another bushing, then your sway bar. Just push it up through the sway bar, and then another bushing, then a washer, and then that nut. And now just tighten that up.
Tighten up the suspension parts, you want to simulate it as if your car was in the level riding position. So you can see I'm jacking it up off of the lift with the jack, and now I'm tightening up the sway bar link. You tighten it up until the bushings are basically squeezed down and they're about the same diameter as the washers. And again, with the weight of the vehicle on the suspension, tighten up the 3 nuts that go into the bolts. There's the 2 that go the control arm to the body, and the one that is the control arm to the knuckle, and those all tighten to 110 foot-pounds.
Now take this panel and feed it back in underneath. Get the holes lined up and then push these clips back into place. And then for these 4 clips, you just push in the lower part of the clip, then push the center in to lock them. Now replace the wheel, and then replace the lug nuts. And we'll fast forward as Mike tightens those up. And you want to tighten them while the vehicle's in the air, just preliminarily, then lower the vehicle and tighten them the rest of the way. And then you want to torque each of these to 100 foot-pounds in a crossing pattern. Then take your hubcap, line it up, and get it back into place.
We hope this video helps you out. Brought to you by oneauto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet. Please feel free to call us toll-free, 888-844-3393. We're the company that's here for you on the internet and in person.